of Syracuse released a statement in an interview saying that he was basically waiting for us to lose motivation, lose our fire, and come back after break having learned a lesson. I don't know what he meant, because I'm pretty sure we're still gonna be here after the break, and we're still here after Thanksgiving break. That's just it.
I'm not an animal, I am a human being, I am a person. That is disturbing. So it's not okay, and that's exactly why I want to say, bye Kent. Bye Bobby. Bye Bobby. Bye John. Bye John. And goodbye Dolan. Bye Dolan. Because you cannot carry out the change that we need, because this is literally the violence you're enacting after 2 weeks of this nonsense. You're doing it to your own students. Your own students.
We refuse to cease our occupation until our demands are met in their totality. All power to the students.
I hate it here. I'm from Miami just like her.
If you're like me, you may have just been asking yourself, what the hell is going on at Syracuse University? You might have heard something about a racist manifesto, or some racist graffiti, or maybe a snow swastika. Or, most recently, you might have heard that a group of protesters might have been locked in a building without food or other resources. And, if you're like me, you probably thought, wow, that sounds really bad, I should probably look into that. What am I missing here? Personally, I've had several friends post about the injustices of the Syracuse University protesters. So, wanting to know more, I dove into all the articles and videos I could find online involving the controversy. So, let's start at the beginning. I want to review an outline of what sparked the outrage. So here's a timeline from Syracuse.com. On November 7th, students find racist graffiti in the Day Hall building on multiple floors. On November 14th, a swastika is found drawn in the snow off campus. On November 15th, racist graffiti against Asian people is discovered on the 3rd floor of the Day Hall. On November 16th, racial graffiti and a swastika. On November 16th, a student reports another student yelling a racial epithet. November 16th, SU confirms it's investigating a hateful email directed at several members of the campus community. November 16th, an African-American woman told SU officials that someone shouted the N-word at her on campus. November 18th, more racist graffiti found in the Day Hall. November 18th, SU receives multiple reports of a white supremacist manifesto being posted on an online forum and being airdropped. November 21st, SU says it's investigating 4 more racist incidents, 3 of which revolving around graffiti and 1 of which a post-it note with anti-Native American language on it. Alright, now let's fast forward to January. January 24th, another incident of anti-Semitic graffiti. January 25th, a group of individuals in a passing car reportedly verbally harasses an Asian American student. January 28th, racist graffiti targeting blacks and Asians. February 2nd, again in the Day Hall, racist graffiti directed towards black people. February 8th, a driver in a passing vehicle shouted a racial slur at 2 students at University Place. And finally, February 20th, homophobic graffiti again in the Day Hall. As you could probably tell, most of these incidents were some form of vandalism behind a bathroom stall or a vending machine. As far as the graffiti is concerned, it sounds like they just need to call a janitor. And as far as the snow swastika is concerned, I mean, couple sunny days, no cleanup required. But speaking of graffiti, I did want to mention a headline that I found quite funny when I was researching everything. It seems that there was, in fact, a student arrested for graffiti on November 21st. The only problem is that that student was actually vandalizing in support of the protests. Ugh. Not a good look. Now, sometime during the November incidents, a group of activists and protesters calling themselves #NotAgainSU started protesting and drafting a list of demands. Now, I'm not going to go over the entire list of demands. There are 19, and some of them aren't very interesting, but I am going to single out a few that I found to be just absolutely ridiculous. So let's go through those demands. Mandatory diversity training for all new hires, and hire new diversity staff specifically. Hire more counselors to better represent marginalized identities. So specific counselors for people of color, I guess? I didn't realize they had counselors who specialize in specific marginalized groups. Agree to building an entirely new building devoted to multicultural offices. Oh, I love this one. Agree to allocate necessary funds to support current students of color in alleviating financial burdens. Yeah, there's definitely no incentives for these guys to be continuing these racist graffiti incidents. agreed to allocating $1 million to the creation of a new anti-racism curriculum. Why 1 million? I don't know. Sounded like a good number. Individual diversity be added to the factors considered when admitting students to colleges. What exactly is individual diversity, you ask? Well, who knows? I mean, I thought diversity meant you had to have a group of people that were all different, but turns out you can be individually diverse. And lastly, make the diversity training status of tenured professors available online. So basically, they want to check up on the professors and make sure that they're sufficiently woke. This one's particularly interesting because I assume that it's not a professor who's acting racist or writing graffiti in the bathroom stall, and yet the demands list is specifically singling out professors and faculty for having to be sufficiently trained in diversity. And so, with these demands taped to the inside of the Barnes Center, these activists single-handedly would solve racism on Syracuse University campus, and off campus apparently. And after much tension and protest, the Chancellor, Kent Syverud, signed the list of 19 demands, but with 3 edits. But what Kent forgot is that the mob does not negotiate with old white patriarchal structures of the olden days. This is 2020.
All power to the students.
The Chancellor must sign or resign.
We will not be silenced, and we will not allow the administration to pacify us without the full endorsement of our demands in the exact language that they have been presented in. We fully reject the Chancellor's response to our demands. And we maintain that we will not be stopped until he agrees to sign our list as it currently stands.
Now, let's skip forward to the most recent events which actually motivated me to make this video. I saw several of my friends posting about SU protesters stuck inside a building with no food or other resources. Now, I'm not gonna lie to you, initially my BS detectors went off. It seemed pretty unlikely to me that Syracuse University was keeping protesters inside a building against their will. And sure enough, when I looked into it, that was the case. What actually happened was that the #NotAgainSU protesters were protesting inside the Krause-Heinz building past when it closed. So the SU faculty told them you can either leave and go into the library, which is open 24/7, but you can't stay here because we have to close. The protesters refused, and so SU issued suspensions to the protesters who refused to leave the building. SU had to restrict access to the building, but the protesters inside were free to leave at any time. To me, this all seemed pretty reasonable. But, as you can probably tell from the videos I've played, these aren't exactly reasonable people. It's simply their way or the highway. Suspensions were lifted for the students after 3 days, and from what I can tell, business as usual has resumed inside that building. The #NotAgainSU students are still protesting there, and it's pretty unclear as to how this whole thing will resolve. Alright, now we're up to speed on what happened. So first, let's just clear one thing up right off the bat. The racist manifesto that was said to be airdropped to students was a hoax. It was proven to be a hoax. It never happened. This is important going forward because someone somewhere on the campus faked this story and nobody is talking about it. We're just continuing to talk about the racist graffiti as if that is completely legitimate when we don't know exactly why someone said that there was a racist manifesto being propagated via airdrop across the campus.
Since November 7th, there have been upwards of 12 hate crimes. We can't even keep track anymore.
These are not hate crimes. Hate crimes involve violence, and these are not violent acts. These are just words. I know this is controversial, but if you don't believe me, here is a snippet from nyc.gov explaining the difference between a hate crime and just words. Now, I'd like to get something else out of the way. It is entirely possible that all or some or most of these incidents were done by trolls. It is also entirely possible that some or all or one or two of these incidents were done by the activists and protesters themselves. And I know what you're thinking. Why would anyone fake a racist incident? And I'm honestly not sure. I can't think of any reason why somebody would want to do that. And just so we're crystal clear, just because I'm suggesting that these are possibilities does not mean that I'm implying or suggesting that that is exactly what happened. I'm just saying these are possibilities that other people are not talking about, and I find them to be important for how we view things moving forward. So that being said, let's explore option 1. Let's assume that it's a troll doing these things. Some student writes a racial slur on 1 or 2 or multiple bathroom stalls. This act propels the school into months of protest and outrage. This is exactly what a troll would be looking for. In fact, this is probably a better response than a troll could ever hope for. So if it is a troll, what we can probably expect is that when and if this dies down, you're probably going to get more of it. This type of reaction feeds trolls, and this hyper overreaction is exactly what they're looking for. Let's explore option 2, that this is done by one of the activists or protesters. Now, I will say it's entirely possible that the first incident could have been a troll, and then incidents after that could have been activists looking to hype things up. Now, the motivation behind an activist writing a racial slur on a bathroom stall in order to spark outrage is absolutely a complicated one. It's much more complicated than if a troll did it. However, there are motivations behind doing these types of things, as we can see in referencing the French actor.
Juicy Smouillet is a very famous French actor.
I want to point out that the fact that the racist manifesto was proven to be a hoax does give some credibility to the idea that this is either being faked by activists or that it is a hoax by trolls. So now that we've gotten those 2 controversial points out of the way, I want to go on to my third and more important point. All of the incidents listed in that article, besides the manifesto, which was proven to be a hoax, are just words. They're words or they're symbols. And the words are not violence. And I don't know why this needs to be said, but none of those incidents that happened are inside of the university's control. Some of these didn't even happen on campus, and yet somehow it's the fault of the university. Personally, I find the outrage surrounding this to be absolutely ridiculous. It's way overblown, and it doesn't make any sense. What should have happened when all of this went down is that Syracuse University should have just released a memo, sent it out, and said, look, these are unacceptable, racist acts, and we condemn them. But we don't really have any control over them because some of them are happening off campus, and the ones that are happening on campus are happening in bathroom stalls. They should have told people that they'll look into the events as best as they possibly can and try to find out who did it and punish those involved. Then everybody should have just gone on their merry way, gone back to class, and acted like nothing ever happened. At the end of the day, it is important that we realize the reality of the situation. These are words that were written in a bathroom stall or a swastika that was made in the snow. These are not direct threats. They don't count as direct threats. And it's not even clear if they were intended as direct threats. Yet, for whatever reason, the entire campus is in an uproar. People are shaking. They feel unsafe. It's not good, and I don't think it's good that the university has gone along with the students' demands. Let's put it that way. I think that the activists are acting almost entirely in bad faith. I think that they have incentives to do so, as we've stated. They are looking for alleviation for students of color regarding financial burdens. There is some clear power trip happening here where they want to live action role play as revolutionaries.
All power to the students.
Now, just to give you an example of the type of professor that teaches these type of revolutionaries, I want to give you a quick screenshot of a professor at SU and what her Twitter profile looks like. Jen Jackson is a radical queer black feminist political scientist at Syracuse University. Her pinned tweet says, "Hey new followers, a few things you should know about me. Number 1, I believe none of us is free until all of us is free. Okay. Number 2, I protect black trans women at all costs. Number 3, I believe in the abolition of the police. Number 4, I'm anti-capitalist." So yeah, that should give you a pretty good idea of what the students are being taught. I want to play a clip for you that I found to be actually quite saddening. I know that sounds hard to believe because I've been kind of sarcastic and harsh, but I want to focus on this one girl who really speaks to the problem at Syracuse University.
I was at. We walked outside and their white neighbors called the cops on them. The cops on the black students at this party. What are you waiting for? Let's talk about how in the news the black lady was shot in her house when their neighbor called for a wellness check. What do you want? And that you students get shot for going to a party? What's next? What's next? And then where's our money? Let's talk about $23,000 for Sean Spicer to come here. That's gonna make me uncomfortable. Last. Y'all talking about mental health on this campus. First, I want to thank everybody who shared their story, because I've been quiet about how this shit has hurt me. But y'all shared your story, and that it made me powerful to share mine. I haven't slept. I haven't had a peaceful night. I've been having anxiety attacks, and I don't want to talk about what happened to me anymore, because I cry when I do, and I'm tired of crying in front of people. I get anxiety attacks, I have panic attacks. This university stole my mental health. I was one of the happiest people before I came here. And you want me to pay full tuition that those white students are paying? For what? For a university who stole my mental health? I can't sleep. I can't sleep anymore. I wake up and I wake my roommate up, I'm crying. And I had a panic attack, I couldn't get up until I booked my flight home. I hate it here. I hate it here. Like, what is wrong with y'all? When all this said, stop admitting us, I felt that in my soul. If y'all would have admitted me, I would have been happy at home. I wish I didn't come here. And honestly, y'all can't tell us to pay full tuition to what, to be bullied and terrorized. That's bullshit. I'm done. It's bullshit.
Now, I actually believe this girl. I believe that she has been immensely unhappy since she's been at Syracuse University. And I don't think that she's been unhappy because of racist incidents or because it's an unsafe place on campus. What I think is that she's being taught on campus that being a victim is virtuous, that the world is an unsafe place, and that people like her are going to be continually under attack just for being a certain color or a certain gender. So it's actually quite logical that she would be shaking and crying in this video, because everything she's been told since she's been on campus is that she's marginalized and it's not safe to be there. Almost certainly the answer to these problems is not more diversity training, and it's not focusing more on one's race or gender or sexuality. Almost certainly the path forward is to tell students that they are stronger and tougher than they realize, that their immutable characteristics like their gender and their race don't matter. These aren't your identity, and when you realize that your identity is not linked to something as trivial as your gender or your race, and that tying your identity to something so trivial is about the same as tying your identity to your hair color. What we need to be telling people is that they're stronger and they're tougher than they realize, and that these words are just words, and it's up to you to determine how you react to them. Now, before I end this video, I want to recommend a book to everybody watching this. I understand you probably think I'm being insensitive or that I'm not aware of the unique perspective of the people on campus. And maybe that's true, but I am giving you my opinion, which I think is somewhat worth listening to. I want to recommend this book. This is a book by Jonathan Haidt about the situation almost exactly as we're seeing unfold on Syracuse University. This book is about bad ideas with good intentions. This book highlights that young people are not fragile, they're actually anti-fragile. And what that means is if you drop them, they aren't going to break, but they're actually going to get tougher and stronger. This is a foreign concept on a campus. It's the antithesis to the safe space. If you are a student and you're watching this, please understand that you are much tougher than you realize, and these hardships that you encounter make you a stronger person if you choose to let it. You can retreat, and you can cry, and you can shake, or you can stand up and say, you know what, I am stronger than some sharpied words on a bathroom stall. I'd also like to recommend that anyone with severe anxiety consider getting cognitive behavioral therapy. This is also mentioned in the book. There are ways for you to separate your emotions from reality and how you act in the world. Cognitive behavioral therapy is a good step forward for someone who suffers from quite a bit of anxiety and depression. So I'm going to end the video there. I hope that I didn't offend anyone too much, but I am genuinely trying to help, and I am interested in the best path forward for people. And what I'm seeing on Syracuse University campus just screams the worst way forward. It just does not look like the best way forward to me. So thank you for watching, and good luck to everybody.